Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mike's, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com. You can find cool stuff in stock every day, and check out our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. And check out Alter Sleeves. Support the show by using the code MAGICMIKES at checkout for 5% off anything in the store. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, MTG Nerd Girl.
Hey, guys.
Reuben Bressler.
What's up? It's great to be back.
Yeah, it's about time to talk about Jumpstart Horizons. Jumpstart is back. I love it.
We wanted to take our time and actually experience Jumpstart Horizons before we made our list, and I think we've got enough of a data set now.
I think so. Between the limited format, which was pretty interesting, sometimes a little slow and or swingy, but all in all, I had a really good time with the set. I thought it was sweet, and the additions to Historic have been really interesting, as we'll obviously get to. So, all right. Well, we also begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Reuben will tell us who was the most eloquent, letting us know what card we did not choose, so one of our top 10 rotating cards. Reuben?
So, the winner this week is perhaps the most important person on the podcast, and that would be Mr. Joe Loof.
Yeah.
Joe Loof left us a comment. He's the one who curates our news and has been a part of the show. Don't let it go to your head.
Of Magic Mike's.
Don't let it go to your head though, Dr. Joe. But Joe left a comment on our Patreon. He said, Dream Trawler didn't need to be a rare, and I'll be the first to say that Theros Beyond Death Limited was terrible because Dream Trawler was a rare. But in the very next set, we got a card that was uncommon and obviously shouldn't have been. My honorable mention is Zenith Flare. It was the mythicest uncommon we've seen in years, and it was Exhibit A in the class action lawsuit against Cycling for a Colorless. It and Cycling for a Colorless are so good together that Boros Cycling has been one of the best things you could be doing in Best of One Standard, from printing to rotation. And the deck was little more than an Ikoria block constructed deck with fancier lands.
Yeah, Zenith Flare is a white, red, and 2 generic mana for an uncommon instant. It deals X damage to any target, and you gain X life, where X is the number of cards with a cycling ability in your graveyard.
That
was very well written.
Yeah, that was, and I agree with it 100%. I got so sick of every game, either my side or my opponent's side, ending as a result of Zenith Flare, that it was like, why are we even still doing this format?
Definitely in limited. I didn't see that I found it that common in standard. The comment saying that it was one of the best things you could be doing in standard, I found to be, I don't play that much, but I've ran across it a couple of times. I think I played against Jim Davis with it in a tournament, and it didn't seem that scary to me in standard, but that could just be the type of decks I play are pretty good against those types of decks maybe.
Yeah.
But
also
definitely limited.
Specifically only Best of One Standard, because then you can start
right. There's the Best of One Standard, plus I think there was a window there where it was very, very, very good, and then it didn't stay that way as time went on. Zenith Flare itself, it's just one of those, it's a very straightforward, it's this is what you do, and you pick every card that has the word cycling on it, and you hope to open Zenith Flares, and in constructed it's EOT Zenith Flare, untap Zenith Flare. That's your win con right there. Just don't let them kill you before you get 2 of these, and then cycle one, all the live long day. So, Joe, thanks for being a part of the show. Please contact us on social media or Discord or wherever, where we're at. Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway. And stay tuned for our top 10 list this week, and maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate. Because it's time to talk about those Jumpstart Horizons cards. Are sweet. I don't even have a number 10. That's how sweet it is. It's higher on somebody else's list.
Wow.
Okay.
I can't even get started at number 10.
All right.
But Nerd Girl, can you get started at number 10?
I can. I also have only one higher, but that's much, much later.
Okay.
So we have Throes of Chaos is my number 10. I didn't do the build up again because I forgot. I'm sorry.
No, it's
I'm the
fine.
worst.
There's no build up to Throes of Chaos.
You don't need it because this card's dumb and I hate it.
So this is a very, very annoying card that it's finding its way into Best of One and Best of Three. So Throes of Chaos is 3 colorless and a red with Cascade and Retrace. So what basically decks are wanting to do with this is it's just a historic version of Tybalt's Trickery, which you can't counter because then you just keep doing it over and over again. And it's ending games very quickly. I hate this type of deck in standard, which is kind of running rampant, but it's also doing its thing in historic thanks to this. And I don't want it to be there. I want it to go away.
Right. Standard, it was just not as good. It wasn't as consistent, right? You get to 4 mana, use Magma Opus to get a treasure token so you can do it on turn 3. Tibalt's Trigger, one of the things about Tibalt's Trigger was that you had to have a spell to counter. This spell is the spell itself that it can counter. I can't, and I hate it. And it's way too consistent, and it's just so demoralizing when they end of their second turn, they discard the Magma Opus, and you're like, here we go. And they get Ugin, or they get Kozilek, or whatever, Ulamog.
Yeah.
I mean,
or they just
Merchant Ultimatum,
yeah.
or whatever the hell crazy thing.
Genesis Ultimatum, Ugin.
I just hate it so much.
Yeah, it's very stupid.
My hope is they ban Tibalt's Trickery in Historic sooner than later.
I don't understand how they made Tibalt's Trickery. Like, no matter how you look at that card, it's going to be made, like, no deck that wants to consider this is going to be something that's fun for someone to play against in any form or fashion. So, like, I'm wondering if they made it thinking it would just be a dead card, but then, I don't know, just, like, print a pretty turtle picture for me and just call it a day.
They're like, it'll be.
You don't need to do something that might accidentally get broken.
Like the way that all this stuff happens, they're like, it's going to be a random effect. It's not random when you build the whole deck around resolving this spell. That's not.
And Cascade has been known for that since forever.
Right. Since forever. You know what you're going to hit every single time, and you gave it retrace and you put it in the set. Why?
Yeah, it means you can't even counter to get out of it. It just comes back over and over again until you're dead, which is just super aggravating.
That is correct. Reuben, what's number 10?
My number 10 is, so my list is more about my experience playing with Jumpstart Horizons in the limited, and seeing the cards that, like, whenever I cast them or my opponents cast them, I was like, well, the game's over because this card is great, which gave me a lot more of, like, bomb uncommons and, like, cool commons and stuff like that. And there was some overlap, of course, because Jumpstart Horizons has a lot of cards that are in every version of that pack.
Right.
And I think that this one is one of the, like, occasionally it's in the Teo pack, because it's toughness based. But every time that I resolved a Scour the Desert, it was just done. Like, the game ended at that point. Scour the Desert, it's 3 colorless white for a sorcery. Exile target creature card from your graveyard. Create X 1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying, where X is the exiled card's toughness. This is so easy to get to happen. Like, they try to kill your 5/5. There's like a 7 mana 5/5 lifelink creature, or they kill your, 7/7 angel, and then you're like, oh, that stinks. Here's 7 birds. Like, deal with it, and then you win. They're hard to block. They're good at racing. You can throw one under the tires of a 5/5 and still win the race. And yeah, this card's great.
Yeah, this card is, like, basically it turns games around because you have suddenly so many evasive attackers and also so many blockers that you can split up exactly however you need them to be, which is just better than having a 5/5 flyer sometimes, because sometimes they're attacking you with a 3/1 and a 2/2 over here and some tokens over there, and be able to go wide. And a deck that can take advantage of it is terrific. And this is a card that's, like, it's cool. It's from Modern Horizons 2, so it feels like it's that pushed limited, it's doing more than you would expect for a 5 mana sorcery. Yeah. I like it a lot. And yeah, I don't think I won any game where this was cast on the other side of the table. Way to put that.
I like all of the cards that are not so insanely powerful they feel unbeatable, but, like, I don't mind bombs. And I feel like that is where this kind of falls in for me.
Right. Yeah. It's not completely unbeatable. It's definitely not a Dream Trawler territory. It's just really good. It's really good. All right. Well, that was our number 10. I don't have one, like I said, but I will. So let's go in here to my number 9. This is a card that I loved both in the limited environment and being able to play around with it in constructed, which are just, like, my favorite cards. And this is also one of those cards where you're just like, man, this card was super pushed at the time when it was released in the first Modern Horizons. And there's so much fun you can have and crazy stuff you can do with Soul Herder. Soul Herder is a blue, a white, and a generic mana for a 1/1 uncommon spirit. Whenever a creature is exiled from the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and at the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Me and Muldrifter and Soul Herder, that's lock.
Peanut butter and jelly.
We're together forever. Yes, it's the Stone Cold Nutter Butters. I absolutely loved it, and it's great.
The card's insane.
Yes.
I mean, there's no two ways around it. Like, this is the best Conjurer's Closet ever. The fact that you have to get it off the board immediately. This is another one of these cards that if you don't deal with it immediately, then you're done. Right.
They get their one interaction, they get their one, blink, and then you untap and you have to kill that or the game's over.
Right.
Yeah. I also got to play at one point. I played the mirror in the Jumpstart queue where they got their Soul Herder out first, and it was like, well, that's it.
That's
the end. All right. Reuben, what's number 9?
My number 9 is a card that I was a little surprised that we've already had Cascade on another card, but I was a little surprised that they wanted to put Cascade onto Magic the Gathering Arena. And I think that we saw that Bloodbraid Marauder was coming before we saw that Throes of Chaos was coming. And it was a little weird. I just didn't think we were going to get Cascade, but Bloodbraid Marauder is here. Colorless and a red for a 3/1 human berserker that can't block, that has Delirium. This spell has Cascade as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. The blue-red Delirium deck was pretty easy to get online. You had a lot of things like Implement of Creativity and Omen of the Forge and enchantment creatures and cycling lands and lots of stuff. And then Bloodbraid Marauder would get you your 1 Dragon's Rage Channeler or your 1 Unholy Heat, and it was good value.
Yeah, this card was totally sweet. This card ended up being less than I expected, essentially.
I agree with that.
It's okay.
I definitely wish that they had kept Cascade off of Arena. It's just not a mechanic I've ever found fun. It just feels too gross. Like,
it's better in limited, right? Because at least then you can build your whole deck around getting this interaction every single time.
Right.
And I was talking to somebody else about it's a totally different game where it's like every pro in almost any competitive game, all they want is consistency. That's what pros live on. They live and die on making sure that this works this way every single time. But the RNG and what changes, and while no Magic, no 2 games of Magic are unique, that's what makes it fun and cool. That's what makes it interesting. So when you have a Cascade deck that does the same thing every freaking game, you mull till you get it. Like, it just seems terrible. For everybody. It's like, ugh, it's gross. All right, let's move on here. Nerd Girl, what's number 9?
So real quick, I just want to say that I do find it a little weird that both of you guys did your top 10 lists on Jumpstart Limited, and I did mine on Historic.
Right?
That's weird.
No, Soul Herder has been played in Historic.
Yeah, sure. But I agree with you that we did sort of have a Freaky Friday.
Nerd Girl's like, you went 100% constructed. Reuben went 100% limited. I kind of went a little both.
Well, we
did both. Okay.
Yeah, country and Western. All right.
I was trying to fit in, and then now I'm the opposite. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, it's great.
Here we are.
So my number 10 card probably should have been higher, but I don't like it, so I gave it that 10 spot. So now this is probably should have been my 10. This is more of a cute interaction, something that I have seen played before in other formats, but just now it's cute, and it's not super good as far as results for Historic, but I find it to be some really cool interactions, and that is Vesper Lark.
Ooh.
So Vesper Lark is a 3 mana, 2 colorless, and a white 2/1 flyer that when it leaves the battlefield, return target creature card with power 1 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with Evoke. So Vesper Lark does some really cool things with Davriel's Withering, and it can kind of create this weird loop that potentially could draw games, but also if you combine it with cards like Cruel Celebrant, you can actually win games on turn 3, which seems really inconsistent, but a very fun, cool way to win a game. I am not super excited about combos that are not interesting to interact with, but it is a really cute combo, and I like that it's super inconsistent in that you're still doing something fun and it's not going to just crush every single game, sort of like that Cascade nonsense.
Right. Creature interaction, leading to combos where, you can kill a creature to stop it, to me is way better than they have this spell they're going to retrace over and over that I have to counterspell and have something exile a graveyard and blah, blah. But I actually built the Vesper Lark deck And like every time they just killed the creature when I targeted it with Davriel's Withering, and I was just like, I'm done. Screw you. I'm out of here. You know.
I think that's what makes it good.
But that's what makes it fun.
That makes
cool.
fun magic as opposed to not fun magic.
Right.
I like. So I was playing this in I think it was the Peasant historic queue.
Okay.
Where you couldn't use rares and mythics.
Mm-hmm.
The Davriel's Withering Vesper Lark combo is interesting. I was trying to find a build that made sense for historic, either collected company or some sort of explorer shell, or just straight up with Bolus's Citadel, you know.
Oh, I was playing
for a regular historic deck.
Like 4 colors and
yeah, there was I couldn't decide on anything. It's very easy to find the Vesper Lark, but getting the Davriel's Withering is tough. And so it's like this weird push and pull. I totally agree that when you have, this is essentially Splinter Twin, but you also need to have a Blood Artist or a Cruel Celebrant in play in order for your Splinter Twin to win the game, which I think is really good. I'd much rather have this kind of combo. Absolutely.
It's one of those things where, like, right now Historic's not in a spot where you can really sort of tutor it, as it were. Again, that's that, you know, keeping that consistency. And then again, things have to resolve. So there's like so much setup you would have to do to kind of get you that perfect turn of you play something or use an ability that they can't play spells or whatever, and then you do your thing. And at that point, you have jumped through a lot of hoops. But they're fun hoops. I like it.
It is a cool combo.
Yeah.
With lots of ways to interact with it, but also relatively cheap to do. Right. So I'm fine with it.
Move on here.
Same.
To our number 8. I'm going to get my number 8 out of the way. I'm telling you, the first time that I ever like cashed out of my Magic Online account, where I was like, you know what? Just take all of it. Just take all of it. Do whatever you want, whatever. And it's only really then that you notice the number of things that you've drafted over the years. And because I'm a boomer, old Magic boomer now, I was shocked when I was selling off like 70-something Mole Drifters. My God, I love a Mole Drifter. Mole Drifter is on Magic Online, or on Magic Arena rather, and that makes me so happy. Because this is a classic at this point. This card is like, it's just perfectly costed in like all the different ways until they go completely haywire with flying creatures. 5 mana for a 2/2 flyer that draws you 2 cards is amazing when it evokes for divination. Blue and 4 generic mana for a 2/2 flyer. When Mole Drifter enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards. You can evoke it for a blue and 2 generic mana, meaning you can cast this spell for its evoke cost. If you do, it's sacrificed when it enters the battlefield, which means that is a trigger, which means you can Restoration Angel with that trigger on the stack and then draw 2 more cards. At that point, it loses evoke because it's a whole new different card. Oh my God, I love me a Mole Drifter.
Breathe, Evan, breathe.
Yeah,
but I love the drift.
Yeah, Mole Drifter is spectacular. It's the fact that it was a common in Lorwyn it's a 3-for-1 for 5 mana. Unbelievable. Is wild. Unbelievable. Thankfully, it's been an uncommon ever since. Still a terror of the Pauper format. Been a very popular constructed card from way back in the day in Lorwyn with Makeshift Mannequin, all the way up to present day. In Pauper Tron, for example.
Yeah.
This was also printed in 1 or 2 of the Modern Master sets as well.
Yes.
I believe. I mean, it's something we see recurring in multiple formats and then over and over again in limited. And it's, always been kind of a fan favorite.
Yeah. Card is absolutely amazing. Like, I was there when Patrick Chapin first learned about this card, and he was just going completely nuts, and he was like, this card's like the greatest thing, I can't believe it's a common. I'm like, I know, dude, it's great. And we just sat there and how great Mole Drifter was. It was awesome.
I love it. And look at that face. Look at that trout face. How can you say no?
How can you say no? Reuben, what's number 8?
My number 8 is a card that as soon as anyone plays it, I feel like the game usually ends just from value. But also I could see constructed applications with Abiding Grace. Abiding Grace is 2 colorless and a life for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, you choose one. Either gain a life or return target creature card with mana value 1 from your graveyard to the battlefield. I don't think we have a Spore Frog or a Kami of False Hope on Arena just yet to go completely bonkers with this. But there's plenty of value to be gained by just, trading off a Reuben Inspector early. Getting your, something gets shocked relatively early in the game, and you're just like, Abiding Grace, chump you for the rest of the game. Or if there's nothing interesting in your graveyard, just a little bit of extra value is always nice.
I mean, being able to reuse Selfless Savior over and over was
unbelievably
annoying. I mean, just almost anything, because I actually went and looked up the list, and this is the packet that comes with Ranger Captain of Eos to go and find the 1-drops that you can use with this thing. This card was unbelievably annoying. This card alone was the reason I always wanted to have a disenchant type effect in my deck for Jumpstart Horizons.
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple of other disenchantable big things that I want to get rid of on site, and we'll get to them on my list. Yeah. There's one in particular I can think of that I'm like, I've never seen that card beaten. But yeah, Selfless Spirit, and I'll say it of Life's Bounty, like that kind of effect where it's protecting something bigger and then you get your thing back every turn, much less something like Martyr of Sands. Like, I don't know if this card will ever be in a format with Martyr of Sands, but if it was, we'd go to town.
I mean, having any sack outlet and Reuben Inspector alone is a pretty powerful interaction.
In mono white, card draw.
Who knew?
Who would have thought? Those cards are always surprisingly good. They're usually like earlier things that help against aggro decks, but then also like make it really difficult for controlling decks. So it's just a nice, well-rounded like card type to have access to. So they're definitely interesting.
Yeah, it's so annoying. I love like the picture, like that's Sarah's realm and stuff. Like that's awesome. It looks super cool. Nerd Girl, what's your number 8?
So my number 8 is a card that is seeing some play. It is kind of flexible and used in a few different types of decks, and that is Seasoned Pyromancer.
Ooh, love this card.
Seasoned Pyromancer is 3 mana, colorless red for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, discard 2 cards, then draw 2 cards. For each non-land card discarded this way, create a 1/1 elemental creature token. You can also exile it for 5 mana to from your graveyard to create 2 more elemental tokens. So the reason I think that this card is so flexible is because it gives you like this looting ability. It gives you some presence on the board if you're trying to control the deck or your draws or things in some way. So more mid-range to longer games. But it also is like, getting 2 free cards if you're in a more aggressive deck. So you just get to redraw once you're out of cards. It also enables Madness and Delirium really well, which is, kind of a nice bonus in those types of decks.
That's a $30 mythic. That's a $32.
Yeah, we've seen this twice before. How many times has this been reprinted?
Yeah, I think it's twice. Let me look.
I think this is 3.
Seasoned Pyromancer.
This is the first time it's ever been printed. What are you talking about?
No. Yeah. Seasoned Pyromancer?
Yes.
No, this is the Pyromancer that was Pyromancer in Modern Horizons.
Oh, you're talking about
definitely in Modern Horizons.
Oh, you're talking about the character in the
No. The card Seasoned Pyromancer was printed in Modern Horizons.
That's right.
And so then in this format,
in Jumpstart Historic.
Yes.
So it's only been printed on paper,
physically
once.
printed.
Okay.
The $32.
I see where the breakdown.
Relax, guys.
was.
It's cool.
It's been in 2 sets. It's only been printed
the
once.
Card is absolutely.
Well, Reuben knows what I'm talking about.
I figured it out. I translated the brain's waves.
I've been spending my precious moments. I can play Arena, playing the Mono Red Madness deck. I replayed Jumpstart until I got 4 of this friggin' card because I wanted 4 Pyromancers. This card is amazing. And I love it, and it's just as good as advertised, and I'm very glad I got my playset because I see it like there's so many different ways it works in the ways that you want it to work. If it's just mono red aggro, it's just it's your last card you play, so you draw 2 cards. That's incredible. And if it's Delirium, you get to discard what you want and still get bodies out of it. So it's 3 bodies, it's triggers, there's madness, there's discarded, there's Delirium. It's freaking wonderful. This card does everything you want it to do and then some. Just amazing.
This card is everything. This card does everything. I was playing it in Reanimator as a discard outlet. Yeah. It gums up the board as a Beetleback Chief if you want it to. Mm-hmm. It has an effect while it's in the graveyard. It does everything. Julianne Fries does all the things you want.
I like this card a lot. Let's move on here to number 7. Reuben, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is the first card, I think, on my list that is only in Jumpstart Horizons, and that's because it has the word Perpetually on it. A lot of the cards a lot of the things that they did with Jumpstart Horizons were things you could only do on Arena, which were give something perpetually an ability, which means that it has it no matter what zone it's in.
Right.
You could seek something, right? Or you could conjure something, and those have different abilities as well. This creature in particular, I was super looking forward to, because one of my favorite things to do in Historic is play a Muxus and then attack with a Muxus immediately. But the only way you can attack with a Muxus immediately is if you give it haste. And sometimes you don't hit the War Chief, and you don't hit the Chieftain, and you don't get the Torch Courier, and you're just like, well, now I've got these goblins pass the turn into your Wrath of God mana or whatever. But if you've got a Reckless Ringleader, you can give Muxus haste perpetually.
Nice.
Reckless Ringleader is 1 red mana for a 1/1 Goblin Rogue with haste that says when it enters the battlefield, choose a creature card in your hand. It perpetually gains haste.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you're not hitting it every time, I feel like you're just bad at Magic, because my opponents hit it every time.
I know. I get very unlucky.
You must be awful.
Oh, I'm terrible. Good heavens.
They always
You should see the number of times when I've cast a Muxus and gotten 0 hits off of it. It's amazing.
Every time they get like 100 hits. I don't even know how that's possible, but
they do. And
it never fails.
Mm-hmm. This card is incredible because, I mean, to go from, literally only 1 mana, 1/1 haste many years ago to now you give something in your hand forever, that ability, which is great. I've played with this card in Constructed. It's fantastic. And, ultimately I am looking forward to when they make the secret layer of these cards. I 100% expect them to. Perpetually is a thing that you can track. Put a piece of paper in the sleeve or something if you need to say which one it was. There's a whole variety of players going like, hey, we really want these cards. And you're like, what do you mean you can remember that something changed, until the end of the game? Yeah, dude. Have you read your cards recently? Jesus Christ, every Magic card does 37 things these days. We can remember which one gave this thing
as long as it's not for a competitive tournament, because that opens the door to a whole nother
I think they just
kettle of fish of cheating and
they add them to the ban list as they print the secret layer versions, and Bob's your uncle.
Robert's your brother's
father's brother.
Father's brother.
That's right. Robert's your father's brother. Got that from an Australian guy. Real funny. All right. What? You should check him out. He's fun.
I will check out an Australian guy.
I'll send you the link.
That's what I was thinking.
I'll send you. Is it called Nat's What I Reckon? He's great. Nerd Girl, what's your number 7?
All right, so my number 7 is pretty straightforward. I think it fills a spot. It's kind of unique. Like a lot of the more powerful cards tend to be, big removal spells, blue things. So my number 7 is Esper Sentinel, which I think is a nice addition to the mono white decks. It gives them a lot of extra power. It helps them refill their hand, which, red gets things like Faithless Lootings or
Seasoned Pyromancer.
Things like that. Or the Ox. What was the red spell? Light Up the Stage.
Light Up the Stage too,
That's the kind of stuff. But white usually doesn't have that. So when you have a card like Esper Sentinel, you're either forcing your opponent to play things a little off tempo, or they're getting 2-for-1 when they're removing your threats, which is really helpful for a deck that is near and dear to my heart. And it's just a really nice overall tool to have. I don't think I read it. Sorry about that. Esper Sentinel is 1 white mana for a 1/1. And then whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless they pay X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. So you can buff this with various life gain, +1/+1 counter type decks, which is very common for like the mono white decks. And this just gets harder and harder for them to pay. Or they're just forced to remove it on turn and replaces itself, and it feels really good.
Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of, like, I played this thing in Constructed. This is one of the very first cards I got on Arena because I was like, this card is dope. Let's run with it. It's been absolutely fantastic. And just like the weird, like random things, like you play this on turn 1, you say go, they play their second land and play a mana rock, you draw a card. Like if they played the Guardian Idol that comes to play tap, you're like, I get a free draw off that. Or like they're like, well, I had a 1-drop they wanted to play, so now they have this weird decision of let you draw a card or not, which either is going to slow them down or give you cards, which is great. Right. And stuff like Thalia's Lieutenant starts pumping this thing. The Luminarch Ascendant girl starts pumping this thing. Yep. Like it gets really nuts fast.
Luminarch Aspirant and Thalia's Lieutenant bump this up to 2, which is effectively infinite and allows you to draw a card every time they play a non-creature spell. Thalia herself is legal in Historic and is very good friends with Esper Sentinel.
Yes.
Same with Elite Spellbinder. Ranger Captain goes and gets it for you. The fact that this is a human is wild to me. But
you're describing my Historic deck.
It's a good deck, and
it's a great deck.
Weenie White or whatever, and it's I'm glad to see that a white creature that draws cards is good.
Oh, it's terrific. They're like
agreed.
They're like Lightning Helix your guy. I'm like, I guess I'll draw a card first.
Draw a card.
It's so good. Oh man. All right. So for my number 7. This card originally came out in Modern Horizons. This card, like, Wizards has a thing where they kind of pander, I guess is the way to put it, where they're like, look, we know you like this thing, so we're going to give you this thing, and we're going to give it to you in a way that we kind of know you like it, because it's big and it's ridiculous, it's over the top, so we take a big, ridiculous effect, we take a much, much beloved creature type, we stick them together, and you have the first sliver. For a white, a blue, a black, a red, a green, you get a 7/7 mythic legendary sliver that has one, awesome mechanic on it, which is Cascade. And then secondly, sliver spells you cast have Cascade. I have built the sliver deck in Historic, and I got to play the first sliver and have it Cascade and 2 more slivers. And then they conceded, but by God, I did it, and it was great, and I loved it.
It's great for Historic Brawl.
Yeah.
I always prefer playing against the first sliver than Golos or whatever,
Right.
I mean, Kenrith is also fine, but the first sliver is fun and interesting. They've got Cloud Thresher sliver online now, so all your things have haste and flying. There's a bunch of cool, interesting slivers in the sliver deck. I found it a little frustrating that I couldn't just have the sliver deck twice when I was like drafting Jumpstart. I'd always end up with like above the clouds slivers, and it's very awkward. But yeah, the first sliver as a card itself is how Cascade, I feel like, is a healthy way to do Cascade, because it's a 5-drop that cascades once, then it comes into play, then if you untap, then your stuff gets to work. It's not like an instant win card.
Right.
And so I think it's great. I love this card.
Yeah, Cloud Shredder sliver was like this, both the first sliver and Cloud Shredder sliver was one of those, like, I kept going back to Jumpstart Horizons looking for those packs because I don't want to burn wild cards, and I finally eventually got play sets, and man, that deck is fun.
Nice. The slivers are always a fan favorite creature type too, so even things like this that are not super competitive, I love that like we have access to these sort of decks, so that way people can play casually and build their things that they like and homebrews for their friends and stuff, even on Arena. It's really, really fun.
I did finally get the Changeling Slivers combo in one of my Jumpstart drafts, where I got the sliver half and then the black-white Changeling half, and I felt so powerful.
You crushed so hard.
I actually didn't. I actually died a lot with that deck, but I won a couple games, and it was nice. It was nice to trigger, it was nice to get a Changeling Outcast off of a Mana Weft Sliver or whatever.
Nice. All right, moving here to number 6. Reuben, what's number 6?
This is another one of these creatures that's like, you have to kill it immediately or else you will lose. You will lose. I don't recall this doing much in Modern Horizons 2 when it was released, but Goblin and Narcomancer is just the scariest creature to see on the opposing side of the board. Yes. Goblin and Narcomancer is red-green for a 2/2 Goblin Shaman. Each spell you cast that's red or green costs a generic mana less to cast. This is in the Storm deck, the red-green Storm deck, and basically every game that I had this as the red-green Storm deck, my win percentage went up 30 percentage points if this survived. Like, it is insane how much value you can get off this creature.
That's a lot of percentage points.
Yeah, that's a lot. This card is like not reasonable. This card is 16 like cents or whatever. What is happening? Why is this thing not amazing in the modern format? I don't know, but in historic, this is the linchpin of the Shaman's deck of the harmonic shaman guy that doubles all the triggers.
What's that card called? Harmonic something.
I'm looking it up right this very second. It is called Harmonic Prodigy. So
might be higher on someone's list, but
it might be. But Harmonic Prodigy, let me tell you,
spoiler alert,
was bananas because the Narcomancer makes everything cheaper. I was playing that deck, which also plays Seasoned Pyromancer, which was fun. But when Collected Company costs 3 mana, do you know how like good that feels? Like I'm playing Escape to the Wilds for 4 mana. Like it's just dirty. It's dirty. This card is crazy good, and I love it.
Or you're just playing 3 2-drops on turn 3 and just like it's still great. Like
because
it's insane.
You can. I mean, goodness gracious. That deck's so much fun. When it just starts going and you're doubling your triggers off of your Burning Tree Emissary and stuff, it's just crazy. All right, let's move here to Nerd Girls number 6. What you got?
6 is my one higher.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That just means I can talk about my number 6. It's cool. It's straightforward. We've talked about it a little bit so far. There's definitely a world, again, I feel like they're able to print these cards and people are able to use these cards and like these cards because it's cool to perpetually do something to a card. I also think it's cool that they don't use this very often, right? Just a little bit, just here and there, couple cards here and there, not a big deal. So you don't overwhelm people with perpetual effects. But Davriel's Withering is a damn fine magic card. It's some of the best removal I've ever seen because not only is it just the removal spell, it's 1 black mana for a common instant that gives target creature perpetually -1/-2. It also enables weird combos and stuff because there was no way to perpetually change a power and toughness to something else, and that's amazing.
Esper Lark.
Yeah, I love it, right? That's incredible. That interaction alone is super cool. And now until the end of time or whatever, we'll have this thing that perpetually changes the power and toughness, which will then change all the interactions that creature might have with it. That's awesome.
We don't have like Knight of Souls Betrayal online or Plague Engineer to be able to go crazy with Vesper Lark plus Cruel Celebrant. This is the best way to do it. And oh, by the way, it keeps, Arclight Phoenix in check and Mana Gorger Phoenix and any of these other creatures that come back again and again. Priest of Fellrights is another great target for this. It's a great defensive spell and a cool combo enabler for a 1 mana common. It's great.
It's definitely of the reoccurring or whatever spells. This is one of the ones that made the biggest splash when they were announced. I think a lot of people were really interested in what this would do. I think for what you were talking about, like the Phoenix decks and things, that's going to be one of the biggest things for this. I think it's a great sideboard card and even main deck card for a lot of decks.
I could argue that like Trickery has pushed out all of the Phoenix decks because I just don't see them anymore. But I also think this has done a pretty good job of scaring people away from trying to play the Phoenix decks.
Yeah.
Definitely
like if you're
agree.
in Black and Historic, you're probably playing this. It's terrific. So, high five. All right, let's move on here to number 5. Nerd Girl, what's your number 5?
So my number 5 is kind of a fun one that is also seeing some results, but again, another one that I will probably say incorrectly, like Froghemoth. So you guys can correct me on this.
Perfect.
Froghemoth?
Froghemoth. What are you talking about?
Frogmoth.
Froghemoth. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Frog-E-Moth. Here we go.
Svelin of the Sea and Sky.
Svelin of the Sea and Sky. Is this
Tell me how that
this
one
is
said,
the
guys.
Merfolk?
It is the Merfolk.
Svayelan seems fine.
Sure.
So this is like from the Svelvianite Temple. I don't think I ever knew how to pronounce this word.
I would say Svayelan,
so
but that's
I think we're good. I think you're
great.
You're not going to get corrected on this one.
We're all terrible on it.
Sea and Sky, we'll just go there, is a 3/4 for 3 mana, 1 colorless and blue. Already has kind of nuts stats. It's a legendary merfolk god. It is indestructible as long as you control at least 2 other merfolk. When it attacks, you can draw a card. Other merfolks have ward 1. So that is a lot of text for a merfolk. This is kind kind of an interesting card. I think that Merfolks did get quite a bit of love in this Jumpstart format, but this I think is my favorite. It works really well with Flash Merfolk, like Merfolk's Trickster. It works really well with Collected Company, which is something you often will see in those kinds of cute decks. It plays really well against board wipes, which is one of the big things that gets Merfolk decks. So this is indestructible as long as you have enough creatures. So it does leave behind one body, which kind of allows you to keep the pressure moderately high once they've, used all of their mana and their board clear. So I think it's just all around a good card. And then also, I wouldn't expect Merfolk to do very well in a tournament, but we have been seeing some results. This deck did go 6-0 in a Star City satellite recently, which is pretty interesting.
As it should. This card is amazing. This card is just sick as hell. Whenever it attacks, draw a card. So it doesn't matter what's going on. You attack, you get the trigger every single time. It turns indestructible, which is amazing. It gives your other Merfolk abilities. This is one of those legends that you're normally supposed to only run 3 because you might draw 2. You run 4 of this card every time.
Exactly.
Because you always want it. Give me 2 of them, sure. They'll kill the first one. I'll play another one. Cards amazing.
This could have one. You could subtract one of the 3 abilities and make this a 2/3. And I think it would still see historic play but they pushed it so hard because people want, I'm talking to you, Professor. Yeah. People want to play fish. People want the Merfolk to be good. This is a very good Merfolk.
They pushed it hard. I don't think in the paper world, we're still not there yet. It's like a $2, mythic or whatever. But in the world of historic, it is good enough. And we have some other cards that may or may not be on lists that make it that good. But I've been having a lot of fun with Merfolk on Arena. Reuben, what's number 5?
My number 5 and my number 4 are the 2 hires that I have on somebody else's list.
Well, okay then. Well, I'll talk about my number 5 here. This card is so sick. This card is one of those cards that I didn't really get it. I got it, but didn't really get it as far as how good this thing is. Why this thing is a $3 uncommon. Why everyone was losing their crap when they saw it spoiled. Everyone's really excited about it. They're like, do you understand how good Dragon's Rage Channeler is? And I'm like, yeah. I got to play with this card. Holy crap, this thing is ridiculous. For 1 red mana, you got a 1/1 uncommon human shaman that whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you surveil 1, which means you look at the top card of your library, you may put that card into your graveyard, and it has Delirium for as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, which you, of course, with surveil can get there quite quickly. Dragon's Rage Channeler gets +2/+2, has flying and attacks each combat if able. The only thing it's missing is haste, honestly, because everything else on this card is amazing. As a 1-mana 3/3 evasive attacker that's happening all the time, that's giving you card selection constantly, even regardless after the fact she powers up. Whoo boy, this card is front to back fantastic.
This was my number 6 hire.
Nice.
So we're very, very close on there. I know it's kind of down in popularity, but the Arc-like Phoenix decks definitely benefit by having another threat that can do something. It also helps kind of enable the rest of the deck that's always kind of been there, which I really like. Mm-hmm. And also this is a thing with Luris, which is silly, and Dreadhorde Arcanist lists.
Yep.
Yeah.
So those are, it's got quite a range of decks that it's seeing play in. And I think it's just a nice addition to all of them, makes them all much stronger.
And a wide range of formats. Don't feel too bad for Dragon Rage Channelers lackluster numbers in historic right now. It is seeing plenty of play in Legacy and Modern. It is, I'm pretty sure I had this as my number 1 Modern Horizons 2 card on my list because I saw it and I was like, that's a better Delver. And it's a better Delver. This is I guess it's slightly worse than Ragavan, maybe. Mm-hmm. But if you're trying to kill your opponent, this is the card you want. It's very easy to, you don't even need to try to do anything with this card. All you need to do is put spells that aren't creatures in your deck and it powers itself up. Very easy to get to a 3/3, especially mid-combat. If you just put another thing into your graveyard, you can turn it into a 3/3, block their 2/2, and then go to town the next turn. Right. Card is absolutely great. Maybe someday it'll make its triumphant return to historic, but well deserving of that $4, $3 price tag. in real life.
I've seen it play a lot. I mean, the decks that she mentioned, the Arcanist deck, for example, that deck is scary. And just the ability to put cards in your graveyard more or less for free when your graveyard is such a resource these days is just, I mean, this card is bananas. And I have been really pleased playing with it. All right, so we've got our number 5s. We're going to move here to number 4. Reuben don't have one. Nerd Girl, what's your number 4?
So my number 4, I mean, it's seeing some good play. It's only a common, which is kind of interesting. It might be a little high, but I might be slightly biased because I really like crabs. And I think this crab token is the cutest thing ever. But it is seeing some play, and that's hard evidence. Yeah. It's just a common. It is 1 blue for a sorcery that creates an 0/3 blue crab creature token, cutest token ever printed.
Great.
Hands down. And it also investigates, which creates a clue token that you can sacrifice and draw for a card. And part of the reason this is so good is because it is great for the Is It Jeskai Indomitable Creativity deck. It just gives a lot of resources for that. And also the clue helps you dig for the resources that you need. The 0/3 is beautiful for such a cheap mana cost against the aggressive decks and just buys you a ton of time. And when it's all said and done, I just really want to play crab tokens.
It's a super cool crab token guy.
It's the cutest thing ever.
It's amazing. I mean, I did get to play with Scuttletide in one of my Jumpstart Horizons draft. Not a great card, but it did make my crabs a crab army that I could start attacking people with, which was great.
Nice.
Hard Evidence is spectacular, like well deserving of being this high on the it is first of all, it's a Thraben Inspector, right? So it makes a body, it makes a clue, it also puts a card in your graveyard. So it's like slightly better than Thraben Inspector sometimes.
Of course,
like if you're playing in a Dragon's Rage thing, it's one of the very few cards I've ever seen that matches up well with Ragavan, because it just stonewalls the Ragavan and gives you extra stuff to do. And the Indomitable Creativity, you can flash it back with, with Snapcaster Mage or Mizium Mastery or whatever you need to do. This card's spectacularly good.
Knowing, this is one of those cards that, knowing how good Thraben Inspector is, it didn't take me, that long to go, oh, that card's really good. But then, it sort of see a whole bunch of play, and I'm like, man, I really didn't expect it to get that far into the format. Yeah. But it hits all those little things. It checks all those little boxes. It's good in the Delirium decks too.
Yeah.
It's only a common. And then when you read the card, you're just like, okay, I got an 0/3 and I can spend more mana to redraw kind of, but it does so many different things that when you put it all together, it just has a really nice package.
Yep.
That comes with a cute crab.
Absolutely. I mean, the cute crab is the high selling point. Exactly.
Crab
people. Partially crab, partially peach. I peach, exactly.
I peach. Look, for my number 4 is a very straightforward card in terms of there's one deck it goes in, and it is one of the best cards in that deck. But that's where it goes. You ain't gonna see this randomly pop up anywhere. No. There's one deck for Sterling Grove, and my God, is it good in that deck. For green and white mana, it is a rare enchantment that says other enchantments you control have Shroud. They can't be the target of spells or abilities. And for 1 generic mana, you can sacrifice it to search your library for an enchantment card, reveal it, then shuffle and put that card on top. I have the Enchantress deck in Historic. It is an absolute ton of fun. 4 Sterling Groves is absolutely essential. But when you're playing Sterling Groves, you got the super cool Scythe Harvest Hand, which we may or may not talk about. I mean, Sanctum Weaver, which I wanted to put on my list, but I was like, if I want to put anything, I want to put Sterling Grove because this card's great. But Sanctum Weaver just kicked that deck into a whole nother stratosphere, which is incredible. Nettle Sister is great. Enchantress' Presence finally shows up. I mean, this is a fantastic card. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's been around since Invasion?
Invasion, yeah.
Card is amazing. And it's one of the few cards from the Enchantress, style of deck where you want multiples. A lot of those cards other outside of the Enchantresses themselves, you don't want 1 million solitary confinements. You don't want 1 million, my creature gains trample, right? But the first Sterling Grove gives you the effect. The second Sterling Grove protects themselves, and the third one can tutor for you. So they all add up together. It's a great ability. I'm super excited it's in Historic because I think that Enchantress is a healthy thing to have in that format.
Anytime you don't get punished for drawing multiples of a thing is always really good.
Yeah, and it also interacts with weird ways, I found, because I was playing with enchantment creatures like Alseed of Life's Bounty, but I was also playing with Ranger class, which is awesome. But that first ability targets, and I was like, wait, why is it not? Oh my God, my stuff's got a Shroud. I can't put counters on them anymore. And I was like, that's a weird interaction I wasn't expecting. But overall, the fact that you draw so many cards in the Enchantress deck, that whole put it on top of your library doesn't mean much, because literally whatever cheap enchantment you play, you're going to draw it right in your hand. So this card was terrific and I love it. All right, let's move on to number 3. Reuben, you rejoin the conversation.
That's right. It's time to talk about so I think that my 2 and my 3 are the uncommons that I don't think have lost. If I have them in my deck and I play it, I will win that game. If I draw this card, I will win the game in limited. I'm not sure that they're going to do the same in constructed. It's very difficult to get them to work in constructed, but certainly in a limited environment, these cards are the cards that I'm like, it's my opening hand. All right, I win this game. This one is named Combine Chrysalis. Combine Chrysalis is a green and a blue for an artifact that says the following. Creature tokens you control have flying. It also has an activated ability of pay 2 colorless, a green, a blue, tap, and sacrifice a token. Make a 4/4 green beast creature token, activate only as a sorcery. In the make tokens deck with hard evidence, with food tokens, there's so many random garbage tokens sitting around. Upgrading them all to 4/4s, and oh, by the way, with flying those 4/4s, and your squirrels all gain flying, and your wolves all gain flying. This card is unbeatable. I love it so much.
Flying squirrels makes me happy. Just saying.
Yeah. That's a good point. I wasn't expecting to see this one on your list. That's interesting. I never actually got to really play with this card. So,
oh my God, it's a house. And you as you mentioned, the limited games of Jumpstart Horizons oftentimes get really bogged down, huge board stalls. It's very difficult to break through. Right. Not a ton of ways to there's no wraths. There's not even pyroclasms. This gives all your tokens flying and upgrades all those cute crabs. I know you don't want to sacrifice the crabs, but sometimes you need to. Sometimes they need to come out of their shell and be 4/4s and end the game.
This guy,
that's right,
professional commander.
Master plan.
That's right. But I thought you were going to talk about the Pool of Vigorous Growth, the Momir artifact thing.
That card's fine. I've beaten that card.
Ridiculous. I don't think it's on any of our list, so I don't care.
Yeah.
That card is dumb. Once you get to 7 mana, you just do that for the rest of the game, is make 7 drops, because they're all stupid. So, okay.
I've beaten Pool of Vigorous Growth.
That's amazing.
I don't think I've beaten a Combine Chrysalis.
Oh, wow. I mean, all right. I guess you can do things one or the other. Nerd Girl, what's number 3?
So my number 3 is my last non-same. This card is, it's high on my list just because I felt like it should have been, but it's not really the kind of thing I would personally like to play. That's Sarah's Emissary. Ooh. So Sarah's Emissary is a very large flying creature for 4 mana, white. And then it is a 7/7 flying angel. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. You and creatures you control have protection of the chosen type. So this is very expensive, but it can win games on its own just because it's so big and scary and massive. It's also one of the best choices to cheat into play with the Indomitable Creativity deck. And then if you start to get more than one of these on the battlefield, it's just absolutely insane board states that I really don't want to have to deal with, which is why I just play limited all the time.
Yeah, I get to play against this. I play constructed. I get to see when they play 2 of these. They name creature, they name instant, and then you just hate all life thereafter.
Unless you have a declaration in stone, then you're done.
Then you're done. And sometimes you can sneak past them and race if you got a whole bunch of creature tokens or something, but a lot of times the game is just over.
Yep. In the limited version of Jumpstart, Cards Unbeatable, this was my number 4. Nice. In Constructed, this is like one of the main targets in the Mardu Reanimator deck in Historic. It is the thing you want to Undoubtable Creativity for. More than Jin-Gitaxias, more than Elish Norn, more than Massacre Worm or Shale Dread. This is the target that you're trying to cheat into play. That does say quite a lot.
It's like incredibly difficult to deal with. And I think I even might have misspoke just because like that's the way my brain works for limited play. It is card type, not creature type. I don't know if maybe you said that incorrectly.
Right. It's card type. You choose a card type and it has a protection.
So like if you're getting multiples of these, you are just protection from all of the things. Your opponent can no longer do stuff, which I don't think makes for fun Magic, but yeah, it's also probably people who like EDH love big fat idiots like this.
Oh yeah, everybody. So, I mean, those angels. I don't care how bad an angel is. There's going to be somebody who's excited to get it and play with a ranger deck.
7/7 angel. I'm on board. Let's do it.
Doesn't matter. Well, I mean, speaking of angels, in terms of my number 3, this is one of my favorite cards. This is one of the cards that when when I was playing Magic and when I was covering Magic and whatnot, and I was making Magic show and stuff, and as time goes on and they made creatures better, this was one of the bellwethers. This was one of the this card is really, really good. Its stats had no reason to be as good as they were at the time in which they were printed, which was Avacyn Restored, because Restoration Angel, my God, there wasn't anything, nothing close to a 4-mana 3/4 flyer in those days, let alone with a sick ability on top. Oh my God, Restoration Angel was white and 3 generic mana for a 3/4 rare angel that has flash and flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you may exile target non-angel creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. Thragtusk, of course, says what's up, but just as a 3/4 blocker out of nowhere, this thing is fantastic. You get triggers.
Restoration, every time you see a Restoration Angel, they're always fan favorites. They're always worth some decent money. I remember when this thing was first printed, and definitely an interesting card to have on Arena now.
They've kind of printed it into the dirt at this point. It's about $1, but it was very expensive at one time.
Yeah, I don't know what the best thing to do with Restoration Angel is in Historic. I don't feel like it's Thragtusk.
It's probably not, but
there's got to be something, because you go turn 3 Soul Herder, turn 4 Resto Angel. There's probably a dope 2-drop,
right?
That draws a card or makes their opponent discard a card or something, anything really at that point. But yeah, Restoration Angel is insane. I mean, mid combat, it stands in front of your 3/3 beasts. It gives you extra value. It is an end of turn attacker. It does all the things you want.
Julianne Fries, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
Let's move on here to number 2. Now, this is the beginning of our same parade for Brittany and I, but Reuben, you have a unique number 2. What is it?
Great minds.
Again, this was a close one for which of the cards I wanted to put at number 2. I knew I could only put one of the 2 cards of the that I wanted to put here, and seeing as one of them I've seen a ton of, sees a ton of play in Legacy and older formats, I wanted to give the due to the other hero of my story. We've all seen Goblin Engineer do its thing. We all know Goblin Engineer's insane. Archbound Shikari was the best creature in Jumpstart Horizons Limited, period. It just was. There was nothing anyone could ever do when I had an Archbound Shikari. Archbound Shikari is a colorless, a red and a white for an artifact creature cat soldier. It's a 0/0 with first strike. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other artifact creature you control, and it has modular 2. So it's a 2/2 first striker. When in concert with Goblin Engineer, whether you go search for it and put it in your graveyard and start doing replacement shenanigans with your Zabaz, or whatever. It doesn't matter what you're swapping around, and then pumping up the rest of your team every time it comes into play, every time it leaves. There's also really fun first strike tricks that you can do with this card, where if you have your Shikari and you're attacking with regular strike creatures, the Shikari can deal its damage first, then you sacrifice it, get those tokens on a regular strike creature, and then you've dealt 20 damage out of nowhere, our affinity style. This card's insane. I just feel like I love this creature so much, and it kind of came out of nowhere for me.
I liked the little bit of limited I did play for the historic. I liked the modular stuff. It didn't seem overly powerful, but like gave some really cool interactions and made removing things slightly difficult for my opponent, but like didn't seem super landslidey. This is obviously one of the better of the bunch, but I think it was an interesting thing to add. I was happy that they did.
Hardened Scales is now on Arena.
That's true. Hardened Scales is on Arena. I never had this with Hardened Scales. I don't think that it's possible to get a green deck when you first pick white-red or vice versa, because they want to like let you have the mana match.
Yeah.
Isn't the Scale Up deck the one that has Hardened Scales, I believe? Isn't that green?
Scale
white?
Up is green. I think it's just
green.
It might
You're
be
right.
green white. You might be right.
I think you're right. I think it's just green.
But this card didn't need it, and it made my brain go burr because I didn't get to really do those Archbound affinity tricks since 2003 or whatever. And so I was able to do those, like sacrifice a thing, make this thing big, and it was fun.
You are 100% right that it was a mono green deck, which is unfortunate. Or a mono green Jumpstart pack or whatever.
It's fine.
Okay, then. That means we get to our number 2. We share the number 2. This is a spell that I have cast a whole lot since it got printed, digitally marked or whatever. This card is super cool. I'll be honest, I didn't really think much about this card until I started seeing it being played against me over and over and over. And the deck list I started finding had I'd play set after play set after play set. Nerd Girl, I don't know about your experience with this card, but it's very, very good.
Yeah, so the card, I mean, its floor is a slightly worse shock,
right?
Which is not a bad place to be, and that's Unholy Heat. We've got 1 red for an instant. Unholy Heat deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker, and that's why it's slightly worse than shock because it can't go face. But it has Delirium. Unholy Heat deals 6 damage instead if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, which we're seeing more and more that is not super difficult to get. So at 6 mana at that point, you're dealing with most big threats. Like you're not going to deal with the Sarah's Emissary, but that's about it. For 1 mana at instant speed, you're killing the Teferis and a lot of the really, really big threats. And with cards like Faithless Looting in the format, it's not even a hard thing to get going or active. So yeah, this card is nuts. Some pros have gone so far. Martin Yuza said it was the best card in Historic right now, which might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but like it is very, very good.
Hyperbolic, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But 1 red mana, answer your 5 mana Teferi is like just
that's pretty good.
Chef's kiss, let me tell you.
When you're
I hate
approaching
Teferi, so.
Yeah, it's true. When you're approaching Thoughtseize numbers as a 1 mana spell, it's worth taking notice. I mean, this card has been a legacy and I think even vintage star since its original printing. Very easy to get Delirium, and you don't even have to try. You just play Magic. And early, you're killing Esper Sentinels anyway. So who cares? Unholy Heat is just a spectacular Magic card.
It's just the real deal. And to be able to take down Gear Hulks and stuff and big planeswalkers, like killing Narsets that they just played, stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, I've done that, and it's really important to be able to deal 6 damage with 1 mana. That's a lot.
6 is a huge number. I mean, that's Nissa Who Shakes the World. That's Elder Gargaroth. That's Titan. I mean, that's most everything for sure.
Yeah. So through, I guess, process of elimination, my number 10 is Reuben's number 1, and then our number 1 is your number 5.
Probably.
I believe that's how it works. But go ahead and tell us about your number 1, Reuben.
Well, we got some planeswalkers to talk about. I didn't choose this card for any reason other than its ridiculousness, other than its pageantry. It's so dramatic. It just comes in with its hands on its hips, and it's like, I'm here to be a weird Magic card. Davriel Soulbroker is my number 1. 2 colorless, black. It's your legendary planeswalker, Davriel, that enters with 4 loyalty. So we got a 4 mana planeswalker that has 4 loyalty, and it has a +1. And its +1 is until your next turn, whenever an opponent attacks you or a planeswalkers you control, they discard a card. If they can't, they sacrifice an attacking creature, which is surprisingly good. Its number 2 is the headliner. Except -2, accept one of Davriel's offers, then accept one of Davriel's conditions. We'll get there. And then -3 is target creature perpetually gets -3/-3. I don't think I've ever used the -3 actually, but the -2 of accept an offer and then accept a condition is wild. And the Davriel deck itself lends itself to more of a controlling kind of strategy. So you can typically accept a condition that you're okay with. Things like creatures you control get -1/-0 for the rest of the game, or your spells cost a little bit more. And then the offers are like draw 3 cards, make some tokens, return 2 creatures to your hand. There's some good stuff in those offers.
I will not forgive them for not using accept one of Davriel's terms, then accept one of Davriel's conditions, just because it's too memey. I can't. The meme factor alone.
Terms is too negative. Terms is more of a synonym with conditions than it is a antonym. Terms offers has the right kind of je ne sais quoi for it.
But the jokes, Reuben.
Sure. This card's memey enough. We don't need to.
We don't need any more memes.
We've plenty of memes with Davriel.
We never have enough memes. Come on now. That's not.
I am very glad I didn't have to play this in limited or play against this in limited.
It's very strong.
Like I said, I didn't play a whole ton of the format because it just didn't seem worth it for me because I didn't really want the cards. And then there's like nothing to play for. So then you're spending like a fair chunk of change acquiring these crap cards for 0 reward, which is more cards I don't want. So,
well, if you're never going to use them, then they are 100% crap cards.
Right.
Yeah, they are. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't a bunch of really cool stuff printed. If this was a normal limited format where we were able to, go 3/3 and like recoup most of our, entry fee, I would have definitely been interested in seeing a lot of cards like this played. But also, I'm not sad that nobody played this against me.
Right.
It's just cool. Like the fact that they can change all the offers and change the conditions whenever they want, or if something's too powerful or too dumb. This is one of those, like, based on or at least early estimates here, it doesn't seem to be that good in a constructed format like Historic. It's fun. It's silly. You'll see it in Brawl decks, Yeah. Okay. That's fine. All right. Well, that was my number 10. And again, so your number 5 must be our number 1. Now, this card was, I believe Jim Davis has said this was the best card in Historic Horizons at one point or other. This is a card I have absolutely played with. It is super crazy. It is not fair. This thing is pushed like stupidly so because it's 3 mana. This thing was either 3 mana or maybe it had less loyalty or something. But my goodness, Nerd Girl, tell them about our number 1.
So our number 1 is Fraley's Sky Shroud, which is the new elf planeswalker. It is colorless green for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. Enters the battlefield with 4 loyalties, so that's very Oko-like, which is a little bit on the scary side. And the +1 is untap target elf. That elf and a random elf creature card in your hand perpetually gets +1/+1. So that is another one of those perpetual things that we're seeing on some of the cards. So very unique to this particular format. The -1 is seek an elf card. So we're basically guaranteeing that we get to draw a spell with a -1. And the -6 is to conjure a Regal Force card onto the battlefield, which this is absolutely brutal on the play. If you are going turn 1 Land War Elf, turn 2 this, untap, do the thing, play the other elf, like holy smokes, that is unbeatable.
I've not lost a turn that went that way where you go play this on turn 2, untap the Land War Elf and play the Esper Sentinel in your hand. Then next turn, you're able to get out a Elvish Archdruid because then the turn after that, you're going to be able to tap it for mana, then untap it with her ability, then tap it for mana. But like, woo!
Yeah.
It's off the rails, man. This thing is nuts.
It's very good that this is... I mean, I like Planeswalkers that are extremely powerful in very narrow circumstances. And I also like it when tribal strategies are good, particularly tribes that you want to be your signpost tribes in a fantasy game. Elves, goblins, zombies, wizards. I'm totally okay with this thing being super busted. And it is super busted. And I kind of want it to be super busted. And it also highlights Perpetually, Conjure, and Seek on one Magic card, which I think is great. I think that is a spectacular headliner for the whole set. I think that this knocks it out of the park in terms of what you want to put in a set like Jumpstart Horizons.
Yeah, I agree. It highlights all of the new mechanics really well. It is super duper powerful, and it's excited to open and play with, and that's a hell of a Magic card. And
I agree with Reuben that I like when it's really narrow, because it's not something I'm getting overly sick of, because, you know, it's not like Elves is every single deck you're playing against, and it is only good in the one. Right. So like, it feels like it gets to be good. I can play against it and then not like start to hate it over time, which is kind of nice.
And that was our top 10 Jumpstart Horizons cards. You'll see them on the screen right now. If you're a review, take a look at my list, Nerd Girl's list, Reuben's top 10. And we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about. And we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Nerd Girl.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Reuben.
Thank you. More Jumpstart. I love Jumpstart. Make more of them.
Please. And thank you. We appreciate it. And yeah, I screwed up the outro slide. Sorry. So I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsors, CardHoarder.com and AlterSleeves.com, my co-host, MTG Nerd Girl and Reuben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening. I hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMikes. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at Magic Mikes, on Twitter at Magic Mikes Cast, our Magic Mike subreddit, and like the Magic Mikes page on Facebook. Or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mikes. Good night, everybody.